Please let me stay. I won't let you down. Annie's voice trembled from the cold. Standing across from Nathaniel Whitmore, just inside the front doorway, he took a slow sip of wine, his eyes fixed on her over the rim of the glass. His voice came out low. How did you get in? Are the guards at the gate not doing their jobs? The outer gate wasn't locked, sir. I just followed the path with the lights. Annie shivered as she explained, both hands now gripping the worn strap of her backpack. I know this sounds crazy, but it's so cold outside. I don't have anywhere to go. This is not a charity house, young lady. Nathaniel set the glass down on the table with a quiet click. Get out before I call the police. I tried, sir. The one I knew was full. I can work. I can clean. I can wash dishes. I don't need a bed. A chair is fine. He spoke in a cold voice. You came to the wrong house. You want money, don't you? Nathaniel said, his voice low and dry. Don't stand here making trouble, girl. Please, sir. Annie took one step forward, then stopped and stepped back. I don't need money. I can work. I cook very well. I know how to clean, and I know how to keep quiet. I won't bother you. Just a small corner in the storage room or the basement would be enough. Nathaniel looked at her. His eyes moved from her wet shoes to the backpack in her hands, then stopped on the dark bruise around her trembling wrist. You're running from something, Nathaniel said. His tone was certain, but empty, and I hate unnecessary trouble. I'm not bringing trouble to you, I swear. Annie's voice cracked. I don't need money. I can work. I cook very well. I know how to clean, and I know how to keep quiet. I won't bother you. Just a small corner in the storage room or the basement would be enough. Behind him, Mrs. Evelyn Brooks stood near the sideboard with a folded napkin in her hands. She's freezing, Evelyn said. Nathaniel did not turn. People survive worse. Yes, Evelyn said, but not everyone remains human afterward. Nathaniel looked at Annie again. What's your name? He asked. Annie Carter, sir. Where are your parents, Annie Carter? My mother passed. The man at home isn't my father. Not anymore. Then call the police if you're in danger. Annie's mouth tightened. Police don't always hear girls like me the first time. He moved his hand toward the phone on the table. Evelyn spoke again, softer this time. Mr. Whitmore, if Miss Grace were out there tonight, what would you want someone to do? Nathaniel turned then. Do not, he said. Evelyn held his gaze. I'm not saying she's Grace, Evelyn said. I'm saying it is 20 degrees outside. I'm sorry, Annie said. For what? Evelyn asked. Annie pointed to the floor. The water. I didn't mean to track snow inside. Nathaniel noticed. Evelyn walked to her gently. Come away from the door before you catch your death. Annie stepped farther inside. When Annie thought every last bit of hope had gone out, she turned slightly toward the door, ready to step back into the white sheet of falling snow. Then Nathaniel's voice came from near the dark stairway. The servants' room is at the end of the first-floor hall. She froze. He kept his voice cold because cold was simple. One night. You'll eat in the kitchen, sleep where Mrs. Brooks puts you, and leave in the morning. You will not wander. You will not go upstairs. You will not touch anything that does not belong to you. Understood? Yes, sir. And do not mistake this for charity. Annie nodded. I won't. For a few seconds, she could not move. Then one rare warm tear slid down her cold cheek. Thank you, she called after the shadow of him as he began to disappear down the hall. What should I call you? Nathaniel. He did not turn back. And tomorrow, when the snow melts, you leave. Annie lowered her eyes. Thank you, Mr. Nathaniel. From the kitchen came the low murmur of Evelyn's voice, the scrape of a chair, and then silence. A few minutes later, softer than a prayer, Annie said, May I save half for tomorrow? Nathaniel closed his eyes. For years, nothing had reached him. Not profit, not praise, not pity. Not the anniversaries of death marked by expensive flowers on polished stone. Outside, snow covered the long driveway. Inside, Annie Carter took her first warm bite in 2 days. Not knowing the man who had let her stay had not truly let anyone enter his house in years. Evelyn glanced back at Annie as they reached the kitchen. You can breathe, child. The house won't bite. Annie gave a small, nervous smile. I'm trying not to touch anything. That's wise in this house, Evelyn said, but not unkindly. Mr. Whitmore likes things where he left them. Has he always been like that? Evelyn slowed a little. No. She took down a bowl, filled it with soup from the stove, and set it on the small kitchen table. Sit. Evelyn placed a spoon beside the bowl. Eat slow. You look like you haven't had a real meal in a while. I ate yesterday, Annie said. Evelyn looked at her. Annie lowered her eyes. Half a pack of crackers. That is not eating. Annie picked up the spoon, then stopped. May I save some? For later? For tomorrow, Annie said. If that's all right. Evelyn's voice softened. There will be food tomorrow. From the dining room, Nathaniel heard everything. From the kitchen came Evelyn's low voice. You got people looking for you? There was a pause. One man, Annie said. Your stepfather? Yes, ma'am. Is he the one who hurt your wrist? Another pause, longer this time. I fell. Evelyn did not answer right away. Child, I have lived too long to argue with the first lie a frightened girl tells. Annie's spoon stopped. I'm sorry, Annie whispered. You don't owe me an apology for surviving. Nathaniel stood and walked toward his study. Thank you, Mrs. Brooks. You can call me Mrs. Evelyn if that sits easier. Yes, ma'am. You always this polite? Annie gave a faint shrug. It helps. That answer made Evelyn look at her again. Being polite should not have to be armor. Annie tried to smile. It's lighter than fighting. I'll show you where you can sleep, Evelyn said. Annie rose at once and reached for the bowl. I can wash it. In the morning. I don't mind. I said in the morning. Annie froze at the firmness, then nodded. Yes, ma'am. Evelyn softened her tone. You're safe for tonight. Let that be enough. Annie followed her down the first-floor hall. For Annie, this house was enormous, but it also felt terribly cold and lonely. She stopped in the doorway. This is too much. It's a bed, Evelyn said. I can sleep on the floor. You will not. Annie stepped inside slowly. Evelyn pulled a spare blanket from the closet and laid it on the bed. Bathroom is 2 doors down. Towels are in the cabinet. If you need something, knock on my door. It's across from the pantry. Annie looked at the bed, then at Evelyn. Why are you being kind to me? Evelyn's face changed. Because somebody should have been kind before you had to ask a stranger. If this moment touched your heart, please like this video. Comment where you are watching from and subscribe to the channel for more emotional and inspiring stories. Annie wiped them away with the heel of her hand. Evelyn pretended not to notice. Get some rest. Before she left, Annie spoke again. Mrs. Evelyn? Yes? Mr. Nathaniel, is he always that cold? Evelyn looked down the hall toward the rooms where the old grief lived. No, baby. He is not cold. Cold things don't hurt. That man is frozen around a wound he never let bleed. Annie did not fully understand. The next morning, Nathaniel came downstairs later than usual. What stopped him at the foot of the stairs was not sound, but smell. Coffee, butter, toasted bread, something warm in a skillet. He frowned and followed it to the kitchen. Annie was there, moving carefully between the counter and the stove. She turned and froze when she saw him. I'm sorry, she said quickly. I didn't steal anything. Mrs. Evelyn said I could use the kitchen if I cleaned after myself. I was going to make breakfast before I left. Nathaniel looked at the stove. You were told to leave in the morning. Not open a diner. I know, sir. I just thought people work better after eating. I don't work in my kitchen. No, sir. I meant everyone else. Evelyn entered behind him, tying her apron. She asked permission, Evelyn said. And before you say it, no, the house has not collapsed. Nathaniel ignored the edge in her voice. We have a chef. Not at 6 in the morning, Annie said, then seemed to regret speaking. I'm sorry. Annie set the plate down near him but did not push it closer. You don't have to eat it, she said. I just didn't want to leave food half done. Nathaniel looked at the plate. The memory came and went fast. He picked up a fork. Anandel took one bite of potato. He set the fork down. Annie's shoulders sank. Is it bad? Nathaniel looked at her, then back at the plate. No. Annie nodded, relieved. I can clean everything before I go. Right then, Annie's phone rang. The sound was small, but Annie flinched so hard the edge of her hand struck the counter. She reached into her backpack with fingers that had gone clumsy. The screen lit up before she could turn it over. Then a new message appeared. Only a few words. "I know where you are." Annie locked the screen at once, but it was too late. Nathaniel had seen it. For the first time in many years, something very close to worry moved through him. Finally, he said, "Finish breakfast first." Annie blinked. "Sir? You heard me." He turned and walked out before the room could make anything tender out of it. But as he passed the dining room, he noticed the long table waiting in silence. Its polished surface empty now. For once, the kitchen behind him sounded more like a home than the mansion ever had. Nathaniel did not go far. He stopped in the dining room, where the table stretched beneath the chandelier like a polished runway no one used anymore. Behind him, in the kitchen, Annie had gone quiet. So had Evelyn. The phone had stopped ringing, but the message stayed in the room as if someone had spoken it aloud. "I know where you are." He had spent enough years around threats to understand the shape of one. Men who wanted money often wrote too much. Men who wanted fear needed only a few words. Nathaniel stood beside his chair, one hand resting on the back of it. He told himself it was none of his business. The girl had been given one night. Morning had come. Snow or no snow, threat or no threat, she had entered his house uninvited and brought whatever life she had been running from to his door. Then he looked toward the kitchen again. Annie was still standing near the counter when he returned. Her face had changed. The color that breakfast had brought back was gone. Her phone was in her fist, screen down, as though turning it over could make the message disappear. Evelyn had set her mug aside. "Who sent that?" "No one," Annie said too quickly. Nathaniel's voice was flat. "No one knows where you are?" Annie looked at him, then away. "It was probably just someone messing with me. Do they often mess with you by tracking your location?" She pressed her lips together. Evelyn moved closer, but not too close. "Annie," the girl's shoulders sagged a little. "It's Marcus." "Your stepfather," Nathaniel said. She nodded. "How did he get your number?" "It's my phone. He pays for it sometimes when he wants to know where I am. Sometimes he cuts it off when he wants to punish me." She swallowed. "I thought it was dead last night. Maybe it turned back on when I charged it in the room." Nathaniel looked at the phone. "Give it to me." Annie pulled it closer to her chest. "No." It was the first sharp word she had spoken since she arrived. Evelyn noticed. Nathaniel did too. "I'm not stealing your phone," he said. "I know." Annie's voice softened, but her hand did not move. It's the only thing I have that's mine." That answer struck the room differently than fear. Nathaniel had owned buildings he had never visited, companies he had sold without remembering the names of their founders, art kept in climate-controlled storage for tax reasons. Annie had one cheap phone and could not let it go. He reached into his jacket, took out his own phone, and placed it on the counter between them. "Then keep yours. Read the message again." Annie shook her head. "Read it. I know what it says. I want the number." For a moment she did not move. Then, with a hand that trembled despite her effort to steady it, she unlocked the screen and showed him. The number was not saved under a name. Nathaniel read it once and handed his own phone to Evelyn. "Write it down." Evelyn did. Annie looked alarmed. "Please don't call him. I had no intention of speaking to him." "Then what are you doing?" "Remembering." The answer did not comfort her. She stepped back. "I should leave." Evelyn frowned. "In this weather?" "He knows I'm here." "He says he knows," Nathaniel said. "That is not the same thing." "You don't know him." "No," Nathaniel said. "But I know men who use fear because it costs less than force." Annie stared at him, uncertain whether to trust the sentence or the man who said it. Nathaniel picked up the fork again and looked down at the breakfast she had made. He had only taken one bite. The potatoes were cooling. The coffee smelled stronger now. Outside the kitchen windows, snow drifted past the glass and blurred the garden into white. "Sit down," he said. Annie blinked. "What?" "You cooked. Sit. I should clean first. You should eat before you fall over." She looked at Evelyn, who lifted her chin toward the chair. Annie sat slowly, as if expecting the order to change. Evelyn filled a plate for her without making a fuss. Annie ate in small bites at first, then faster when hunger overcame manners. Nathaniel watched for a few seconds before looking away. Watching people need things made him uncomfortable. The house phone rang at the far end of the kitchen. Evelyn answered, listened, and glanced at Nathaniel. Front gate. Nathaniel took the receiver. Mr. Whitmore, came the voice of Carl Jensen, one of the morning guards. There's a man at the outer road asking about a girl. Says she may have come this way. Annie's fork stopped against the plate. Nathaniel's eyes stayed on the window. Description? White male, mid-40s maybe, brown coat, gray pickup parked near the service entrance. Says his daughter ran off and might be confused. Annie whispered, I'm not his daughter. Nathaniel heard her. Carl continued, he's asking if we saw anyone. Says he's worried sick. Do not let him through, Nathaniel said. Yes, sir. Should I tell him anything? Tell him this is private property. If he refuses to leave, call Greenwich police. There was a pause. Yes, sir. Nathaniel hung up. Annie stood so quickly her chair scraped the floor. I need to go. If he knows I'm near here, he'll make trouble for you. He is already making trouble. That's why I have to leave. Evelyn's voice hardened. Leave and go where? Back to him? No, I don't know. Somewhere else. Nathaniel looked at her. You have no coat fit for the weather, no money, no working plan, and a man waiting on the road. I've handled him before. That bruise on your wrist suggests otherwise. Annie flinched, not because he was cruel, but because he was right. I didn't ask you to save me, she said. No, Nathaniel replied. You asked to stay. The words stopped her. She looked at him as if she had forgotten her own plea. Evelyn rested a hand on the back of Annie's chair. Eat your breakfast. Annie shook her head. Mrs. Evelyn, you don't understand. Marcus doesn't get tired. He can be sweet in front of people. He'll say I'm unstable, that I stole from him, that I lie. He'll make it sound like I'm the problem. Nathaniel's mouth tightened. There were people in the world who understood the value of a public story better than the value of truth. He had buried his wife and child under headlines that called the ransom effort botched, as if grief were a business failure. What did you take from him? He asked. Nothing. Then why would he say it? Because people believe men like him before they believe girls like me. No one spoke for a moment. It was Evelyn who broke the silence. Mr. Whitmore. Nathaniel knew that tone. It meant she expected him to remember he was still a man, not only a name on buildings. He looked at Annie. You will not leave through the front gate. You will remain inside until the road is clear. Annie's eyes widened. But you said, when the snow melts. The snow has not melted. It will. Then we will discuss it when it does. That was as close to kindness as he could make himself sound. Annie seemed to understand that. She sat down again. But she did not eat. Her eyes were wet, and she looked angry at herself for it. Nathaniel turned to Evelyn. Get her something warmer from storage. A proper coat. Gloves. Boots if we have any. Annie shook her head. I can't take. You are not taking. You are using. There's a difference? In this house there is. Evelyn gave him a long look, the kind that could have become a smile if he had allowed it. Then she went to the pantry hall. Nathaniel remained by the counter. Annie folded her hands in her lap, trying to steady them. Why? She asked. He looked at her. Why are you helping me now? He could have said because the weather was bad. Because Evelyn would not let him hear the end of it. Because he did not like men who threatened women. All of those were partly true. None were the reason standing in the room. Instead, he said, I dislike being pressured. Annie let out a small breath that was almost a laugh, though not quite. That's the reason? For now, a faint sound came from the front of the house, an engine moving slowly beyond the gate, then fading. Annie heard it and went still again. Nathaniel walked to the security panel near the kitchen entrance. The camera showed a gray pickup rolling past the outer wall. Slow enough to be watching. The driver's face was partly hidden by the brim of a cap, but Annie did not need a clear view. Her body recognized him before her eyes did. That's him, she whispered. Nathaniel studied the screen. Marcus Reed drove like a man who wanted to be noticed and feared at the same time. He did not stop. He did not have to. The message had done what it was meant to do. Nathaniel switched off the monitor. Annie looked smaller than she had a minute earlier. Finish your breakfast, he said. I'm not hungry anymore. Eat anyway. She gave him a tired look. You always this bossy? Evelyn, returning with a wool coat over one arm, stopped in the doorway. Nathaniel looked at Annie. For one brief second, the corner of his mouth moved, so slightly it might have been nothing. Usually more. Evelyn's eyebrows rose. Annie noticed it too. The fear did not leave her, but something else entered the kitchen, something thin and cautious. Not safety yet, not trust. Maybe the smallest beginning of both. She picked up her fork and took another bite. Nathaniel did not stay to watch. He walked toward his study, already thinking of the number, the truck, the guard's hesitation, and the name, Marcus Reed. He had built a fortune by seeing patterns before other men admitted they existed. This pattern was simple: a frightened young woman, a man circling the gate, a threat sent before breakfast. By noon, Nathaniel had called Daniel Price. "Run a name for me," he said when his attorney answered. Daniel sighed. "Good morning to you too. Marcus Reed, Connecticut, probably Bridgeport, assault, debt, domestic complaints, anything you can find." A pause. "Do I want to know why?" Nathaniel looked through the study window at the snow falling over the driveway. In the kitchen behind him, for the first time in years, someone was washing dishes and humming under her breath. "No," he said, "but you will." Daniel Price arrived at the Whitmore estate a little after 1, driving a black Audi that looked too clean for the weather. The snow had slowed but not stopped, and the tires whispered over the wet driveway as the outer gate closed behind him. From the kitchen window, Annie saw the car and went still with a dish towel in her hands. Evelyn noticed. "That is Mr. Price. He is Nathaniel's attorney, not a policeman." Annie folded the towel twice, though it was already neat. "Attorneys can be worse sometimes." Evelyn gave her a look. "You've been around too many wrong people." "I know." Daniel entered through the side door, shaking snow from his coat. He was in his early 50s, silver at the temples, with the tired eyes of a man paid well to distrust everyone. He greeted Evelyn with warmth, then looked past her at Annie. His expression changed only slightly, but Annie had spent a lifetime reading slight changes. "So this is the young woman," Daniel said. Annie stood straighter. "Annie Carter, sir. Daniel Price." He took off his gloves. "You understand why I'm here?" Nathaniel's voice came from the hall. "Because I called you." Daniel turned. "You called me and gave me the name of a man with a record. A young woman in your kitchen, and no explanation that would survive a deposition. I did not ask for a lecture. You never do. That's why you need them." Annie looked between them, unsure whether this was an argument or the way rich men spoke when they trusted each other. Nathaniel entered with his cane in one hand and no expression on his face. He had changed from last night's dinner jacket into a dark sweater and trousers, but he still looked like a man dressed for distance. Daniel lowered his voice. "May I speak freely?" "You usually do." "Then here it is. An 18-year-old woman, with no verified paperwork, spent the night in your home after entering through an unlocked gate. Her stepfather has already appeared near the property. If this becomes public, people will not be kind. They will not be fair. They will not wait for facts." Annie's face tightened. "I can leave." "No," Evelyn said at once. Nathaniel looked at Daniel. "What did you find?" Daniel opened his leather folder and took out several pages. Marcus Reed, Bridgeport. 2 dismissed domestic disturbance calls, 1 assault charge reduced to disorderly conduct, unpaid gambling debts, a recent complaint from a landlord, and several small claims involving borrowed money he never repaid. Nothing clean enough to bury him. Enough to know he is not a concerned father. "He's not my father," Annie said quietly. Daniel turned to her. "Does he have any legal guardianship over you?" "No, sir. I'm 18. "Do you have identification?" Annie looked down. "He has it." "All of it?" "My birth certificate. Social security card. State ID. He said I'd lose them if I kept them, so he put them in his lockbox." Daniel let out a slow breath. Convenient for him. Nathaniel's jaw shifted. "Can we get replacements?" "Yes, but it takes time. Faster if she has any copies, school records, medical records, tax forms from work." Annie shook her head. "I worked cash most places. Diners, cleaning, a laundry. Sometimes they paid me under the table because I didn't have ID. Daniel's expression did not soften, but his tone did. That is not your failure. Annie looked surprised, as if she had expected blame. Nathaniel noticed that too. He noticed too many things now, small things he would have ignored 2 days ago. The way Annie stood near the door instead of the table, the way she kept her backpack within reach, the way she watched every man's hands before she listened to his words. Daniel closed the folder. If she stays, we need rules. Written ones. She cannot be treated like hidden staff. She cannot work without pay. She cannot be isolated. And, Nathaniel, you cannot bark orders and assume the world will understand your intentions. I do not care what the world understands. You should. The world ruins people for sport. Evelyn folded her arms. Then write the rules. We have paper in this house. Daniel looked at Annie. Do you want to stay here today? Annie hesitated. She glanced at Nathaniel, then at Evelyn. I don't want to cause trouble. That is not what I asked. Her hand went to the bruise on her wrist, then dropped quickly. I don't want to go back outside. Good, Daniel said. That is an answer. Nathaniel turned toward the hall. She can stay until the road is safe. Daniel followed him with his eyes. That is not a legal category. It is mine. Then let me create a better one. By mid-afternoon, Daniel had drafted a simple temporary work agreement. Annie would help Evelyn in the kitchen and laundry for limited hours, receive fair pay, and have the right to leave at any time. She would sleep in the first-floor servants' room, have access to the bathroom and kitchen, and remain away from private family rooms unless invited. The language was dry, but to Annie it felt strange to see her name on a clean sheet of paper beside words like compensation, consent, and safety. Daniel slid the pen toward her. Read it first. Annie gave a small, embarrassed laugh. I'm not great with legal words. I'll explain any word you want, but you read before signing. Always. Nathaniel, standing near the window, looked over. You graduated high school? Yes, sir. Barely. I missed a lot when my mom got sick. What did you like? Annie blinked. In school? No, at the dentist. Evelyn looked sharply at him, but Annie almost smiled. English, she said, and home economics before they cut the class. I liked anything where you could make something out of almost nothing. Nathaniel looked back out the window. Useful skill. Daniel explained the agreement line by line. Annie listened carefully, asking about pay, hours, whether she would owe anything for food, whether the room would be taken from her if she made a mistake. Daniel paused at that last question. No, he said. You do not lose shelter for making a mistake. Annie nodded as if trying to believe him. She signed slowly, each letter careful. Evelyn signed as supervising staff. Nathaniel signed last, his name sharp and practiced. When the pen left the paper, something shifted. Not trust yet, but structure. Annie understood structure. Rules were easier than mercy. After Daniel left to file requests for replacement documents and make a few calls in Bridgeport, Evelyn gave Annie a list of light tasks. Nothing heavy. Towels from the dryer, pantry shelves, breakfast dishes. Annie took to the work with quiet focus. The house did not know what to do with her. She opened curtains in the breakfast room because she thought light might help the dust show. She wiped the windowsill, folded dishcloths into neat squares, and put a chipped mug near the sink for teaspoons. Small changes, harmless changes. Yet Nathaniel noticed each one as if she had moved furniture in his mind. By 4, Carl Jensen came in from the security office to speak with Evelyn about deliveries. He stopped when he saw Annie polishing the side table near the back hall. You still here? He asked. Annie straightened. Yes, sir. Carl looked at Evelyn. Thought she was leaving this morning. Evelyn's voice cooled. Plans changed. Carl's eyes moved over Annie's borrowed sweater, the clean socks, the folded towels in her arms. Hope Mr. Whitmore knows what he's doing. People see a girl like that around here. They start asking questions. Annie's face went still. Evelyn took one step forward. A girl like what, Carl? He shrugged. You know what I mean. No, Evelyn said. I would like you to say it plain. Carl shifted, realizing too late that Nathaniel had entered behind him. Nathaniel's voice came from the hall. So would I. Carl turned. Mr. Whitmore, I didn't mean anything by it. That sentence usually means a man meant exactly what he said and lacks the courage to defend it. Carl's face reddened. I only meant we should be careful, with strangers. Nathaniel looked at Annie. She stood very still, the towels pressed against her chest. He recognized that stillness now. It was not calm. It was a person making herself small so the room would finish hurting her sooner. Mrs. Brooks will decide where Miss Carter works inside the house, Nathaniel said. Your responsibility is the gate. Try doing that properly. Carl's mouth tightened. Yes, sir. He left. Annie lowered her eyes. I'm sorry. Nathaniel looked at her. For what? I don't know, she said, then gave a small, tired laugh. Habit, I guess. Evelyn's expression softened, but Nathaniel said nothing. He did not know how to comfort without making it worse. That evening, Annie made soup from leftover chicken, carrots, celery, onions, and rice. Nothing fancy. She asked Evelyn before using anything and cleaned as she went. The smell reached the study, where Nathaniel sat pretending to read market reports. Numbers had once calmed him. Now, the columns blurred. He came to the kitchen doorway. Annie looked up. I can make you a plate, sir. I have dinner prepared. I know, this is just soup. Evelyn stood at the stove, hiding a smile badly. Nathaniel should have said no. Instead, he said, a small bowl. Annie served it without comment. That may have been why he accepted it. At the kitchen table, he took one spoonful. Chicken, salt, rice, warmth, ordinary food, human food. For a second he saw Grace at 6 years old, blowing on soup too hot for her mouth while Eleanor told her patience was also a kind of courage. Nathaniel set the spoon down. Annie watched him, careful. Too much salt? No. Too little? No. She waited. He looked at the bowl. It tastes like something. Evelyn turned away quickly. Annie did not understand the size of what he had admitted, but she sensed enough not to make a fuss. My mama used to say, a hot meal can keep a soul from breaking. Nathaniel looked at her then, really looked. Did it? Annie's smile was small. Some nights. The answer stayed with him long after the kitchen was cleaned, and the house grew quiet again. Upstairs. Nathaniel paused outside the locked door at the end of the third-floor hall. Grace's room. He had not opened it in months. Maybe longer. He placed his hand on the knob but did not turn it. Downstairs, faintly, he heard Annie and Evelyn talking in the kitchen, their voices low, ordinary, alive. He pulled his hand away from the door. For now, that was enough. The next morning, Annie woke before the house did. She had slept with her backpack beside the bed and one hand resting on the strap, but for the first time in weeks, she had not woken to shouting, footsteps, or a fist against a door. The quiet felt strange enough to scare her. She washed her face in the bathroom down the hall, folded the blanket tight at the foot of the narrow bed, and put on the wool coat Evelyn had left over the chair. It was too large, but warm. Warmth still felt borrowed, so she handled it carefully. In the kitchen, she found Evelyn already measuring coffee. You sneak around like a church mouse, Evelyn said without turning. Annie smiled. I didn't want to wake anyone. This house could use waking. Annie looked toward the long hall. Mr. Nathaniel wouldn't like that. Mr. Nathaniel doesn't like much of anything before 9. That was the first thing that made Annie laugh in the Whitmore house. It was not loud, just a small sound that escaped before she could stop it. Evelyn heard it and smiled into the coffee canister. What are you making today? Evelyn asked. I was going to ask if there's anything close to peaches. Evelyn raised an eyebrow. Peaches? In December? Canned is fine. My mama made peach cobbler when the weather got mean. Said if the sun wouldn't come out, we could bake it. Evelyn looked at her for a second longer than necessary, then opened a pantry cabinet. Top shelf. 2 cans. Don't tell the chef I let you use his good cinnamon. Annie worked quietly at first, lining up flour, sugar, butter, cinnamon, and the cans of peaches. But cooking changed her. Her shoulders eased. Her hands stopped shaking. She moved as if the kitchen were a language she still trusted. Evelyn watched the girl slice cold butter into flour with a fork, taste syrup from the peaches, add a pinch of salt, then another. Because sweet needs something to lean on. By late morning, the smell drifted out of the kitchen and into the hall. Nathaniel was in his study, reviewing a report he had read 3 times without taking in a word. Daniel had sent an update before breakfast. Marcus Reed had debts, 2 known addresses, and a talent for staying just outside consequences. That should have held Nathaniel's attention. Instead, the smell of cinnamon kept interrupting him. He set the report down and looked toward the door. A memory came without permission. Grace standing on a kitchen stool, flour on her nose, insisting she could crack eggs. Like a professional lady. Eleanor laughing as egg ran down the cabinet. Nathaniel, younger and still capable of annoyance that softened into love, pretending to scold them both. He stood abruptly. In the kitchen, Annie had just pulled the cobbler from the oven. Evelyn stood beside her with a dish towel, looking pleased in a way she had not looked in years. Nathaniel stopped at the doorway. "What is that smell?" Annie turned, suddenly formal. "Peach cobbler, sir." "I asked Mrs. Evelyn first. I didn't ask for dessert." "No, sir. It is 11 in the morning." "Yes, sir." Evelyn coughed into her hand. It sounded suspiciously like a laugh. Annie looked at the cobbler, then back at him. "It can wait until after dinner." Nathaniel should have agreed and left. Instead, he noticed a streak of flour across Annie's cheek. She had probably brushed it there with the back of her hand. It made her look younger than 18, and for reasons he did not want to examine, it made the room feel less staged. "You have flour on your face," he said. Annie lifted one hand and wiped the wrong cheek. "No," Evelyn said. "Other side." Annie wiped her forehead. Evelyn laughed then, warm and sudden. Annie blinked, then laughed too, embarrassed but not afraid. "I promise the cobbler is cleaner than I am, sir." For one brief second, Nathaniel almost smiled. Almost. The movement was so small he felt it more than showed it. But Evelyn saw. Her laughter faded into something softer. Annie saw too, though she pretended not to. She had learned not to point at fragile things. Nathaniel turned toward the hall. "Do not burn the house down." "No, sir," Annie said, still smiling. He made it 3 steps before Evelyn called after him. "Mr. Whitmore." He stopped. "A spoonful won't kill you." He did not look back. "That remains unproven." Annie pressed her lips together, trying not to laugh again. The sound followed him anyway. Quiet and bright enough to irritate him all the way back to his study. At lunch, Evelyn placed a small dish of cobbler beside his coffee. Nathaniel looked at it as if it were a legal trap. "I said a spoonful," Evelyn told him. "You said it would not kill me." "That is not the same thing." "Then consider this a scientific trial." He picked up the spoon. The cobbler was warm, the crust soft at the edges and crisp on top. Peaches sweet with cinnamon and butter. It was not refined. It was not what his chef would serve to investors or board members. It tasted like a kitchen in bad weather. It tasted like someone had made it for people, not presentation. He took a second bite before he realized it. Evelyn pretended to adjust the coffee service. Nathaniel set the spoon down. Too much cinnamon. From the kitchen doorway, Annie's face fell. "I'm sorry. I can fix it next time." The words "next time" hung there. Nathaniel looked at her. He could have corrected it. Could have said there would be no next time, that the snow was letting up and she had already stayed longer than agreed. But Annie was standing with both hands folded in front of her, waiting not for praise, but for permission to have done something wrong without being thrown out. He looked back at the dish. "I didn't say it was bad." Annie's expression changed slowly. "No, sir." Evelyn carried the empty coffee cup away with the dignity of a woman who had just won a battle and did not need to announce it. That afternoon, Annie cleaned the pantry shelves with Evelyn. She labeled jars that had not been touched in months, and found 3 kinds of flour, 4 kinds of rice, and enough canned goods to feed a shelter for a week. She did not say that last part aloud, but Evelyn seemed to know. "When you grow up counting cans," Evelyn said, "a full pantry can feel like a sermon." Annie ran a cloth over a shelf. "Or a test." "What kind?" "To see if you'll take more than you're allowed." Evelyn stopped working. "Who taught you to think like that?" Annie kept wiping the same clean spot. "Life." Before Evelyn could answer, Nathaniel appeared at the pantry entrance. "Miss Carter." Annie turned. "Yes, sir?" "Daniel found records of your school enrollment. Bridgeport Central. He believes it may help with identification." Annie's face tightened at the mention of school. "I missed a lot senior year." "You graduated?" "Barely. Barely is still done." She looked up. Surprised by the blunt fairness of it, Nathaniel continued. He is requesting replacement documents. Birth certificate, social security card, state ID. It may take time. Annie gripped the cloth. Will Marcus know? Not from us. The us slipped out before Nathaniel could stop it. Evelyn looked down at the shelf to hide her reaction. Annie heard it, though. Her eyes lowered quickly, but not before something grateful crossed her face. Thank you, she said. Nathaniel gave a short nod and left before gratitude could ask anything of him. By evening, the house had changed in small ways that would have gone unnoticed by anyone who had not lived inside its silence. The breakfast room curtains were open. A chipped mug sat by the sink for teaspoons. The pantry smelled faintly of lemon soap. Evelyn hummed while folding towels. Annie moved from one task to another with steady care. And the staff, even the ones who were unsure of her, had begun speaking in normal voices again. Nathaniel noticed all of it and disliked how much he noticed. After dinner, he went into the music room. The covered piano stood near the window, untouched under its cloth. Eleanor had played hymns there on Sundays, old jazz on rainy evenings, Christmas songs badly when Grace begged. After their deaths, Nathaniel had ordered the piano covered, not removed, not sold, covered. There was a difference, though he had never explained it to anyone. He found Annie in the doorway a few minutes later, holding a stack of folded napkins. I'm sorry, she said. Mrs. Evelyn asked me to put these in the sideboard. He nodded toward the cabinet. Annie stepped in carefully. Her eyes went to the piano. Does anyone play? No. My mom used to sing when she cooked, Annie said, placing the napkins away. Not well, but loud. Nathaniel said nothing. She said a house with no music starts listening to its own sadness. The sentence irritated him because it sounded simple and was not. This house does not require music, he said. Annie nodded. No, sir. She left without argument. Nathaniel stood alone with the covered piano. He told himself he would not think of Eleanor's hands on the keys, or Grace dancing barefoot on the rug, or the way laughter used to move through this room without asking permission. But later that night, passing the kitchen, he heard Annie humming while she wiped the counter. Not loud, not careless, just enough sound to prove someone alive was still awake. He paused in the hall. The tune was unfamiliar, maybe gospel, maybe something her mother had sung. It rose and fell softly, filling the space without demanding anything. Nathaniel should have kept walking. Instead, he stood there until the humming stopped. The next day, the wind kept hitting the eastern side of the house hard enough to make the old windows complain. Annie heard it first while she was folding towels near the laundry room. A sharp clatter came from somewhere above, then again, uneven and hollow. She paused with a towel in her hands. Evelyn was in the pantry checking a grocery list. Nathaniel was in his study with the door half closed. The staff kept to their usual routes, quiet and trained, not to disturb rooms that had been left alone for years. The sound came again. Annie stepped into the hallway and looked toward the staircase. The third floor sat above the house like a held breath. Nathaniel had been clear, do not go upstairs, especially not to the rooms that did not belong to her. But the clatter grew louder, followed by the thin slap of cold air moving through a loose window. Something might break, she thought. She stood at the bottom of the stairs, torn between obedience and usefulness. All her life, doing nothing had been dangerous. If Marcus came home and a pipe leaked, a pot burned, a door stood open, it did not matter whether Annie caused it. She was blamed for not fixing it. She climbed. The third floor was colder than the rest of the house. The hall smelled faintly of cedar, dust, and closed doors. Annie moved slowly, listening. The sound came from the room at the end. Its door was not fully shut. A strip of pale winter light lay across the carpet. She whispered to herself, "Just the window. Close it and go." She pushed the door open. The room inside stopped her. It was a child's room, but not the kind a child had left yesterday. Everything had been kept too carefully. A small white bed with a quilt folded smooth. Shelves of picture books, a dollhouse near the window, riding boots lined up beside a chair, a framed drawing of a yellow sun, 2 stick figures, and a tall man with square shoulders. On the dresser sat a silver hairbrush, and a photograph of a little girl with missing front teeth, smiling as if the world had not yet learned how to be cruel. The window above the desk had blown open. Snow had begun to collect on the sill, wetting a row of children's books. Annie hurried across the room and pulled the window down. It stuck halfway. She pushed harder, bracing one hand on the desk. A small music box trembled near her elbow. She caught it before it fell. The lid opened. A thin melody began to play. Annie froze. The tune was soft and old, the kind of song a mother might wind before bed. She closed the box quickly, but not before the first notes moved into the hallway. "What are you doing in here?" Nathaniel's voice struck the room like a door slamming. Annie spun around. He stood in the doorway, one hand gripping his cane, his face drained of whatever little life the past 2 days had put there. His eyes went from the window to the music box in her hands. Annie set it down at once. "I'm sorry. I heard the window. It was open, and snow was getting in. I didn't know. I told you not to come upstairs." "I know, sir. I only came to close it. I told you not to come upstairs." The second time was quieter, and worse. Annie backed away from the desk. "I'm sorry." Nathaniel stepped into the room. "Do you have any idea where you are?" "No, sir. This was my daughter's room." Annie's face changed. She looked around again, this time understanding what the neat bed and little boots meant. The air seemed to leave her body. "I didn't touch anything. I touched the window. And the box. But it almost fell. I didn't mean to open it. You had no right." "I know." "No. You don't know." His voice rose. "People like you walk into places and think an apology cleans up whatever you disturb." Annie flinched. It was small, but he saw it. Her shoulders jerked, her arms lifted halfway, not to defend an argument, but to shield her face. Her eyes went down and sideways, searching for the safest place to stand if the blow came. Nathaniel stopped. The room went silent except for the wind pressing against the glass. He had not raised a hand. He had never intended to. But Annie's body had answered a question he had not asked. Someone had taught her that anger came with hands. His grip loosened on the cane. Annie realized what she had done and lowered her arms, shame rushing into her face. "I'm sorry," she said again, smaller this time. "I know you won't hit me. She did not finish. Nathaniel looked at the bruise on her wrist, then at the neat little bed behind her. For one sickening second, the room held both girls. Grace in the photograph, Annie by the desk. One lost forever, one standing alive and terrified in front of him. "Leave," he said. Annie nodded quickly and moved toward the door, keeping distance between them. At the threshold, she stopped. "I really was only trying to close the window." Nathaniel did not answer. She left. He stood in the middle of Grace's room, breathing as if he had climbed a mountain. The window was closed. The books were saved. The music box sat on the desk exactly where it belonged, except it no longer belonged to anything living. For years, he had kept this room untouched because touching it felt like betrayal. If the dust stayed, if the quilt stayed, if the boots stayed beside the chair, then some part of Grace remained close enough to guard. But the room did not feel guarded now. It felt abandoned. A faint mark of melted snow darkened the wood near the books. Annie had been right. The window had been open. He lowered himself into the small chair beside the desk. It was too low for him, built for a child, and for a moment he looked absurd in it. Grace would have laughed. Eleanor would have told him not to break it. The thought came with such force that his chest tightened. He waited for tears. Nothing came. Downstairs, Annie went straight to the servant's room and took out her backpack. Her hands moved fast. Sweater, socks, the few things Evelyn had given her. She folded them, then stopped and put them back on the bed. They were not hers. She would not take what was not hers. Evelyn found her standing over the open bag. "Where do you think you're going?" "I broke the rule." "What happened?" "I went upstairs." Evelyn's face tightened. "To Grace's room?" Annie nodded, eyes wet. "The window was open. I heard it. I should have told you. I shouldn't have gone." Evelyn sat on the edge of the bed. "Did you take anything?" "No." "Did you mean harm?" "No, ma'am." Then stop packing like you committed a crime. He told me to leave. Did he say leave the house? Annie hesitated. He said leave. That man says a lot when he's bleeding inside. Annie wiped her face. I don't want to be another reason he hurts. Evelyn's voice softened. Baby. He was hurting long before you came. You just opened a door the wind was already pushing on. Annie sat slowly beside her. There was a picture. She was beautiful. She was. Evelyn looked toward the ceiling. Grace could talk a bird out of a tree if she wanted company. Loved cherries, hated peas, cried when anybody stepped on a beetle. Annie gave a small, broken smile. She sounds sweet. She was a child, Evelyn said. Sweet some days, stubborn others. That's what made her real. Annie looked down at her hands. Marcus used to say girls like me don't belong in nice rooms. Evelyn turned toward her. Listen to me. A room is not made holy by keeping poor people out of it. Annie's eyes filled again, but she did not cry this time. She was too tired. Upstairs, Nathaniel remained in Grace's room until the winter light began to fade. At last, he stood and reached for the music box. He had given it to Grace on her 7th birthday. She had played it every night for 2 weeks, then forgotten it for a stuffed rabbit, then returned to it whenever she was sick. He wound it once. The tune played, thin, uneven, still alive. This time he did not close it. When he finally came downstairs, the house had grown quiet around dinner. Annie was not in the kitchen. Evelyn was alone at the stove. Nathaniel stopped near the doorway. Where is she? In her room, deciding whether she has been thrown away. His jaw tightened. I did not say that. You said enough. He looked toward the hall. Evelyn stirred the pot, not looking at him. That girl went upstairs because a window was open. She saved books from snow. She touched a music box because it almost fell. She did not rob your memories, Mr. Whitmore. Nathaniel said nothing. Evelyn finally turned. You are allowed to grieve. You are not allowed to make a frightened girl pay rent on your sorrow. The words hit harder because they were not shouted. Nathaniel walked to the servants' room. The door was open. Annie stood when she saw him. I can leave tonight, she said quickly. I'll wait at the bus station. I won't cause more trouble. He looked at the backpack on the bed. Did I ask you to pack? No, sir. Then unpack. She blinked. He was silent for a moment, then added, next time something breaks upstairs, find Mrs. Brooks. Yes, sir. And the window? It's closed. He nodded once. That was all he seemed able to give. But before he turned away, Annie spoke. Mr. Nathaniel? He stopped. I'm sorry about Grace. The hallway went still. Nathaniel did not answer for so long Annie thought she had made another mistake. Then he said, without looking back, so am I. He walked away. That night, Annie did not leave. Nathaniel did not open Grace's room again, but the music box remained on the desk upstairs, its lid still raised, as if a part of the house had finally stopped, pretending silence was the same as peace. By morning, the 3rd floor stayed quiet. But the house did not feel the same. Annie noticed it while folding dish towels beside Evelyn. Nothing had moved, yet something had loosened. Nathaniel did not mention Grace's room at breakfast. He did not mention the music box or the window or the apology left hanging in the hallway. He came into the kitchen, accepted coffee, and stood near the counter while Evelyn read through the grocery list. Annie kept her eyes on the towels and tried not to breathe too loudly. After a few minutes, Nathaniel said, Daniel will be here at 10. Annie looked up. Did I do something wrong? No. That single word did not help much. Evelyn set down her pencil. He's coming about your papers, child. Your birth certificate, social security card, school records, the things Marcus kept from you. Annie's fingers tightened around the towel. I don't want to cause a legal mess. You didn't create the mess, Nathaniel said. You were handed one. She did not answer. People had said kind-sounding things before, and some of them had later used those words as proof she owed them something. Still, Nathaniel's face held no warmth, no charm, no false comfort. Oddly, that made him easier to believe. Daniel Price arrived exactly at 10, carrying a leather folder and wearing the expression of a man who had already found trouble and expected more. He greeted Evelyn, nodded to Nathaniel, then turned to Annie. Miss Carter, I need to ask you some questions. Some may feel personal. You can refuse to answer any of them, but the more I know, the more I can help. Annie sat at the kitchen table with her hands folded. Nathaniel remained standing by the window. Evelyn stayed near the stove, close enough that Annie could feel she was not alone. Daniel opened the folder. Full legal name? Annie Mae Carter. Date of birth? She gave it. Mother's name? Lillian Carter. Father? Annie's eyes dropped. I don't know. My mother said he left before I was born. Stepfather Marcus Reed was never your legal guardian? No, sir. He married my mother when I was 12. After she died, he just stayed. Daniel wrote that down. Did your mother leave a will? Annie gave a small laugh without humor. We had a couch with one good leg. No, sir. Nathaniel looked toward her, but Daniel kept his tone steady. Did Marcus ever file for guardianship, custody, anything like that? I don't think so. He never liked paperwork unless it helped him get money. Do you have any copies of your ID? No. He kept everything in a metal lockbox under his bed. Did he have access to your bank account? I didn't have one. He said banks charge poor people just for breathing. When I worked, they paid cash. I gave him most of it. Most? Annie hesitated. I hid some. In a flour tin. Nathaniel's face changed just enough for Evelyn to notice. Daniel asked, how much? $230. And where is it now? Gone. Annie rubbed the edge of her sleeve between two fingers. He found it the night I left. No one spoke for a few seconds. Nathaniel's voice was low. Is that why you ran? Annie shook her head. No, I ran because he found the community college papers. Daniel looked up. You applied? I wanted to. Culinary program in Bridgeport. I had the forms. I didn't send them yet. Why not? Application fee. And I needed my documents. What did Marcus do when he found them? Annie stared at the table. He said school puts ideas in girls' heads. Said if I wanted to cook, I could cook for him. Then he tore the papers up. Evelyn's hand stilled on the coffee pot. Nathaniel looked out at the snow piled along the hedges. Money had always been numbers to him. $1 million here, $1 billion there, losses absorbed, gains multiplied. $230 in a flour tin should not have mattered. Yet the thought of a girl saving it one shift at a time, only to have it taken by a man who called it his right, made something harden in him. Daniel closed one section of the folder. We can replace the documents. It may take effort, but it can be done. I'll request a certified birth certificate, confirm your social security record, and get a new state ID started. School records may help prove identity. Annie nodded. Will Marcus find out? Not through the requests I make, but if he has your phone account, he may track activity. We need to get you a new phone and disconnect that one. Annie instinctively reached for her pocket. I can't pay for that, Nathaniel said. No one asked you to. I don't want to owe. You owe nothing. The words came out sharper than he meant. Annie went still. Evelyn stepped in. What Mr. Whitmore means is, a phone is safety. Safety is not a luxury. Daniel nodded. We'll set it up properly. New number. Prepaid if you prefer. No shared account. And I recommend filing a police report about the threats, even if you don't want to pursue anything today. Annie's jaw tightened. Police reports don't always help. No, Daniel said, but paper trails do. Nathaniel looked at him. Explain. If Marcus escalates, we need a record. Text message. Appearance at the gate. The fact that she fled domestic violence. It matters later. Annie looked between them. Later meaning court? Possibly. The word made her shrink. Nathaniel saw it and hated that he saw it. No one is taking you to court today. That's what people say before the papers come, Annie said softly. Daniel did not dismiss it. Then we'll move one step at a time. After the questions ended, Evelyn took Annie to the pantry to give her something to do with her hands. Daniel followed Nathaniel into the study and closed the door halfway. She is in real trouble, Daniel said. I know. Do you? Because real trouble is rarely clean. Marcus Reed may not have custody, but he has enough access to her life to make noise. He can claim she stole from him. He can claim she's unstable. He can claim you're hiding her. And given who you are, People will listen. Nathaniel stood behind his desk. What do you suggest? Formalize everything. Employment agreement already helps. We add written permission from Annie to assist with documents. We file a report about the threatening text. We contact a domestic violence advocate, discreetly, and we do not let you improvise. Nathaniel looked at him. I improvise well. You buy companies well. You do not handle vulnerable humans well. The bluntness should have angered him. It did not. Can you protect her? Daniel took a breath. Legally, we can build walls. But if Marcus is stupid or desperate, walls may not stop him from throwing a rock. Nathaniel's eyes moved to the window. Then we make the walls higher. That sounds like money talking. Money is the language people taught me. Daniel studied him for a moment. And what is Annie teaching you? Nathaniel turned back, his face closing. Do your job. Daniel almost smiled. That's what I thought. In the pantry, Annie sorted cans while Evelyn pretended not to watch her. Tomatoes, beans, peaches, broth, rice. So much food. Enough to make her feel both safe and ashamed. She lined the cans by date because order calmed her. You did well in there, Evelyn said. I answered questions. Some folks never learn to do that honestly. Annie smiled faintly. Lying takes too much energy. Does Marcus know about the cooking school? He knows I wanted something that didn't include him. That's enough for a man like that. Annie put a can of peaches on the shelf. My mama used to say I had hands made for feeding people. Marcus said feeding people doesn't make money unless you own the building. Your mama was right. Annie looked down. I don't even know if the school would take me. Then we find out. Way? Evelyn gave her a sideways look. You think I'm letting you fill out forms alone? I haven't bossed people around for 60 years just to stop now. Annie laughed quietly. It was the kind of laugh that did not ask permission. Across the house, Nathaniel heard it from the study. He paused in the middle of Daniel's sentence. Daniel noticed. You heard a sound. Congratulations. Nathaniel's stare was immediate. Daniel raised a hand. I'll return to legal matters. By late afternoon, Daniel had Annie sign authorization forms. He explained each one. She read slowly, lips moving over some words, asking when she did not understand. No one rushed her. That alone made her nervous. When she signed the last page, Daniel gathered the papers. I'll get started today. Mr. Price? Yes? If Marcus calls you, he won't get through. But if he does? Daniel's voice became firm. I do not negotiate with men who steal documents from young women. Annie looked at him for a long moment. Thank you. Daniel nodded, professional again, but softer around the eyes. That evening, Annie made cornbread because Evelyn said chili was planned and store-bought bread is a confession of defeat. Nathaniel ate in the breakfast room instead of the formal dining room, though he acted as if this meant nothing. Annie did not sit with him. She moved between stove and sink, humming under her breath when she forgot to be careful. Halfway through dinner, Nathaniel looked toward the kitchen. Miss Carter, she turned. Yes, sir? The culinary program. What would you do with it? Annie wiped her hands on a towel. Learn properly. Work in a restaurant, maybe. Save up. One day, maybe open a little place. What kind? Nothing fancy. Breakfast, soup, pies. Food people can afford. A place where if somebody comes in cold, they can sit for a while. Evelyn looked down at her plate. Nathaniel's spoon paused over the chili. That is not a business plan. No, sir. Annie gave a small smile. It's just a dream. Nathaniel looked at her across the room. He had once built empires out of other men's dreams and called it strategy. Annie's dream was a room, a stove, and a chair for someone cold. For reasons he did not want to name, it seemed less foolish than most things he had funded. Later, after Daniel had left and the house settled, Nathaniel walked past the servants' room. Annie's door was partly open. She sat on the bed with the old community college website open on Evelyn's tablet, reading program requirements aloud in a whisper. Application fee, she murmured, then sighed. Nathaniel continued down the hall as if he had heard nothing. In his study, he wrote one note on the pad beside his phone. Bridgeport Culinary Program. Fees. Documents. Quietly, then he sat back and stared at the words. Outside, Marcus Reed existed somewhere beyond the gates, still circling in ways seen and unseen. Inside, Annie Carter had begun to gather the pieces of a life that had been kept from her. Nathaniel understood investments. He understood risk. He understood the difference between cost and value. For the first time in years, he wondered what it might mean to invest in a future that was not his own. The next morning brought a hard brightness over the snow, the kind that made every window glare. Annie was in the laundry room with Evelyn, folding sheets still warm from the dryer, when the front gate intercom buzzed. Once, then again. Not the soft chime used by delivery drivers, but the sharp sound of someone pressing too long. Evelyn looked toward the hall. Annie's hands stopped moving. A guard's voice came over the house phone a moment later. "Mrs. Brooks? There's a man at the gate asking for Miss Carter." The sheet slipped from Annie's fingers. Evelyn picked up the receiver. "Name? He says he's Marcus Reed, says he's her father." "He is not," Annie said, before she could stop herself. Evelyn covered the receiver and looked at her. "Go to the kitchen. Stay away from the windows." Annie did not move. Her face had gone flat, the way people's faces do when fear has no room left to show itself. "Annie," Evelyn said, firmer now. "Kitchen." Annie nodded and walked out, but her legs felt as if they belonged to someone else. The hallway stretched too long. Every framed picture seemed to watch her. By the time she reached the kitchen, Nathaniel was already there, standing at the security panel near the pantry door. The screen showed Marcus Reed at the outer gate. He looked smaller on camera than he had in Annie's memory, but not less dangerous. Mid-40s, rough beard, brown coat, work boots dark with slush. A gray pickup sat behind him on the road. He had one hand raised to the intercom and the other tucked in his pocket, like a man trying to look harmless for the record. "Annie!" His voice cracked through the speaker before Nathaniel lowered the volume. "Come on out, baby girl. I know you're in there." Annie wrapped both arms around herself. "Don't let him in." Nathaniel glanced at her. "No one is letting him in." Marcus leaned closer to the camera. "Mr. Whitmore, right? I know you can hear me. I'm just here for my daughter." She gets confused. She runs off. "I don't know what she told you, but she's got a habit of making up stories." Annie whispered, "That's what he does." Nathaniel watched the screen without blinking. The guard's voice came through from the gate. "Sir, he says he wants to speak with you directly." "No," Nathaniel said. Marcus seemed to hear enough to smile. It was not a happy smile. It was practiced. "Annie, you listening? You know how this ends. Don't embarrass yourself in front of these folks." Evelyn entered behind Annie and placed a hand at her back. "Breathe, child." "I am." "No, you're holding yourself together. That is not the same thing." Annie tried to inhale. It came in shallow. Nathaniel pressed the intercom button. "Mr. Reed, this is private property. Leave." Marcus turned his face toward the speaker. "Sir, with all respect, that girl belongs with family. She is 18. She's troubled. She is 18. She stole from me." Annie's head snapped up. "I didn't." Nathaniel did not look away from the screen. "If you believe a crime occurred, file a report." Marcus's smile thinned. "Police already know her type." Evelyn's hand tightened against Annie's back. Nathaniel's voice dropped. "Say that again." Marcus glanced at the camera and seemed to realize he had misjudged the room behind it. He spread his hands. "I'm not trying to make this ugly. I'm worried. A young black girl in a rich man's house? People are going to ask questions. I'm trying to protect everybody here." Annie shut her eyes. There it was. The dirt he liked to throw. Not enough to prove anything, just enough to stain. Nathaniel looked at Carl Jensen, who was visible on the smaller side camera near the guard post. Carl stood several feet back, arms folded, his face unreadable. "Carl," Nathaniel said through the house line, "tell him to leave the property line. If he refuses, call Greenwich Police." Carl hesitated. "Yes, sir." On the screen, Marcus began speaking louder. "Annie, you think these people care about you? You think they won't throw you out when they're done feeling good about themselves? Come home before I tell them what you really are." Annie's eyes opened. Her lips trembled, but her voice came out low. "He doesn't have a home. He has a place where people learn not to breathe too loud." Evelyn turned her slightly away from the screen. "You do not have to listen to him." Marcus stepped back from the intercom and pulled out his phone. He pointed it toward the gate. then toward the mansion beyond the trees. Nathaniel's jaw tightened. "He's recording," Evelyn muttered. "Of course he is." Marcus spoke loudly for his own camera now. "I'm outside the Whitmore estate in Greenwich, where my stepdaughter is being kept from me. I just want to know she's safe." Annie backed into the counter. "He'll post it. People will believe him." Nathaniel turned from the screen. "People believe many things. That does not make them true. You don't understand. Truth doesn't matter when people already know what they want me to be." That stopped him, because it was not a plea. It was experience. The gate camera showed Carl approaching Marcus. The audio was low, but Marcus's voice rose. He was angry now, though trying not to look it. Carl pointed down the road. Marcus leaned closer, said something that made Carl look toward the house. Then Marcus laughed, got into the pickup, and drove off slowly, too slowly, past the wall. Annie did not relax. "He'll come back," she said. Nathaniel switched off the monitor. "Then he will find the gate locked. He doesn't need a gate if he finds someone to open it." Evelyn looked sharply at her. Nathaniel did too. "What do you mean?" he asked. Annie rubbed her wrist. "Men like him always find the person who thinks you're not worth protecting." The sentence sat in the kitchen longer than Marcus's voice had. Nathaniel picked up the house phone again. "Security office." A different guard answered this time. "All gate logs from last night and this morning on my desk within the hour," Nathaniel said. "And tell Jensen I want him in the study." Annie looked alarmed. "Please don't make it worse." "It is already worse. You don't know what he does when he feels cornered." Nathaniel looked at her. "No, but I know what happens when men like him are not stopped early." His voice had changed, not loud, not emotional, but there was something under it that made Evelyn glance over. It was the sound of a man remembering another time when a threat had been treated like a negotiation. Daniel arrived before noon, summoned by a call that contained more silence than explanation. Nathaniel played him the security footage. Daniel watched Marcus perform concern for the camera, then replayed the part where he implied Annie was being held. "He's building a story,"